Great. So Taz, do you want to open up the CBRC meeting this evening? We'll let more people join us. So I think we can go ahead and get started. Like I mentioned, we have public comment tonight. So we do have, some kind of housekeeping items, but I think really want to focus on discussion and response to the budget document and all the content that you've just received. So I think we can go ahead and start with public comment, and then we can get into our housekeeping items. So Javon, I'm going to promote you to panelist now, as well as your colleagues here. And we can go ahead and get started with public comment. And Javon, did you want to go ahead and get started? Hi, welcome. Thank you for being here. Javon, do you want to kick it off for your group?
Well, yes, I'll just say hello, and I'll let Trent Aldridge kick it off for us, and then we will start. So thank you for having us.
Thank you, Javon, and thank you everyone for the opportunity to speak tonight. My name is Trent Aldridge. I'm the Chief Program Officer at Self Enhancement, Inc. And for over 40 years, our organization has been a proud partner of Portland Public Schools. We've been working hand in hand to empower underserved youth in our community. And throughout this successful partnership, SEI has served as kind of an extension to the commitment that PPS has for its students. And our program directly operates in PPS schools across the district, seamlessly working with administrators and teachers. And based on the funding documents we saw yesterday, we understand the really difficult decisions that the district is compelled to make with the resources the way they are. But we also feel like we can produce an opportunity as well when it comes to our partnership and how funds are used. And so I think I just have a couple things I'd like to share, and then Javon and Chantel also will have some information, but I think we can demonstrate a tangible impact. So for us, SEI provides an incredible return on investment. For every dollar your district invests in us, we're able to fundraise, leverage additional dollars of 3. So for every one, we bring 3 to the table to be of service to Portland Public Schools students and families. And then based on the things that has happened recently where the state hasn't decided to fund our district, reductions here might even be more difficult for our students and families. And so we feel like we offer a proven, impactful service that yield a 1-to-3 ratio in terms of what the resources given to the ones that families are able to receive. And a reduction of that could be even more harmful based on kind of the circumstances we're in now. So we have some data that I think backs up our claims, and I'll pass it to Javon to kind of share some of that information.
All right, good evening, Javon Williams, and I am the director here of Student and Parent Services, and I have been a part of SEI since 1998, employed since 2011. And our program was designed to eliminate barriers to student success. And for over 40 years, we've done just that. I have a coworker here at SEI who likes to say that we're getting to the bag, and that's an acronym of behavior, attendance, and grades. And when we talk about behavior, as a previous in-school coordinator, I would walk into school and I would hear that, students can't do this, or some students aren't capable of learning. But as an employee for about 12 years here, I've had the privilege to work multiple days, of course, our after-school programming, our summer programming, and I've just never been able to see some of those behavioral issues because we just do things differently here. And with SEI staff being in the building and in these school sites, we're there to combat those issues. And there are many students who wake up every day, Monday through Friday, excited, but not to go to school, of course, but they're excited to come and see our staff and come and see their in-school coordinators, and the impact that we have on our students allows for them to gain a sense of belonging and a sense of mattering. And to be clear, from one of SEI's very own, Dr. Alicia Moreland Capuya, she said that belonging is just, it's not enough, right? Students have to feel like they matter. And mattering means all students feel valued and they add value to the programs that they are part of. And that is how we are able to impact them, right? Because our students, they feel like they matter. They add value to our program. I could talk about, you know, the number of our students who have blue and gold cards, which you all don't know what that means, but it is a grade point average. But I can confidently say that last year, our high school students had a GPA, an average of a 3.12. Our program fosters personal growth and increases confidence, and we can confidently say that we graduate 98% of our students, 100% during COVID. The statewide graduation, or I think the districts is maybe 79%, and no one, I think, statistically graduates more Black students than SCI. In the last 3 years, we've awarded over $1.5 million to scholarship students, with Jefferson High school seniors having received over 80% of all of those scholarships. And from the 12 that we awarded last year, 8 were Jefferson students. And I think that I don't know what that's about. So just the youth in our program, you know, they gain leadership skills, communication skills, and just success looks different for every student. And we know that this program works because I am a testament to that. We like to have our students finish as positive contributing citizens and community members. And, you know, that's what I like to think I am. And I will pass it on to Chantel.
Well, good evening, everybody. Chantel Waddell. I am the director for our extended day programs at Self-Enhancement. That includes our Sun Community Schools, our after-school program, and our post-high and leadership programs. And I've been with SCI for the last 16 years, but technically since the early 90s. And so I'm excited to be able to share with you some of the resources that SCI brings to our school communities that we serve in. So when school is out and or in, SCI is always there engaging students and our students and families through the additional supports that we offer. We offer after school programming Monday through Thursday, many weeks out of the year. We offer summer programming as well. We run 17 Sun School sites, 14 within the district, and many sports camps as well. So there's a lot that's happening when kids are not in the building or in school. So, you know, it's our goal that students are thriving in many ways, not just academically in the classroom, but we're addressing the whole child, obviously, with some of these additional supports that we offer. And then also I wanted to highlight some exposure opportunities that many of our students participate in our program. So we just got back from our HBCU tour, which is our historically Black college and university tour. We're oftentimes taking kids on college visits locally, career fairs locally as well. Even up in Washington, we've taken some students there. So really trying to help students see themselves after high school and really begin to buckle down and get their work done so that they are successful and they can transition smoothly into their post-high careers. We also offer career and resource fairs, or we offer students the opportunity to participate in those. One recently, which was up at the convention center, where I'm sure a lot of students attended, and then some financial literacy classes. All of these are important for student success. We also acknowledge that our students come with many barriers. Obviously, you know, if you think about an at-risk student, they come from a family potentially that are at risk. And so, which is why it's so important for us to not just meet the students' needs, but really build relationships with the whole family and offer supports that will help the parents overcome those barriers, which also will in turn help our students come to school ready to learn, not being feeling drowned out by some of the struggles that they're facing at home or in their communities. So we do offer like rental assistance, energy assistance, anti-domestic and sexual violence supports. That's for our adolescents and for our adults as well. Case management. We do pride ourselves in the fact that, you know, with there are a few other community organizations, but SCI definitely has the capacity to be able to really in-house meet a lot of the needs that our kids come to school with and our parents are dealing with. And so, you know, just to sum it all up, you know, I think part of what we really wanted to accomplish during this time is to put a face with a name and with an organization, because oftentimes there's transition in roles and things like that. And so we understand that while SCI has been around for 40 plus years, you know, we may be new to some. And so hopefully this will give you an opportunity to hear a little bit about the impact that SCI has and kind of how we support our students. And then directly understanding that reduction in funding, it kind of hinders obviously those services that we can provide. We do have a form that we've created. It's called the PPS and SCI Impact form that we will make sure that gets sent out just for your records. But we appreciate the opportunity to talk with you guys and share about our program.
Thank you. We appreciate you being here. And the content that you mentioned, the impact analysis was already shared with CBRC. So you all have that in your email. So thank you so much for being here tonight. We appreciate you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You.
Okay. So we have some housekeeping. I didn't prepare a presentation tonight. I was hoping we could have a little more of a discussion, and we have a discussion outline that Mariah prepared. So I'll go through the housekeeping really quickly, but I know we have a lot on our plates, ramping up towards preparing our reports. So the housekeeping was around questions and answers. So now that we have publicly available information on the budget, we can get to work responding to your CBRC questions. They are, have also been asked by our board, so I'm hopeful that we can leverage some of the information that we are preparing for our board and provide it to CBRC as quick as possible so that you all are able to take that in and process it in support of your report. Our next meeting is scheduled for next Thursday at the same time, 5:30 to 7:30. I didn't hear either way if anyone would like to have that meeting in person. So I'm going to assume we're going to have it on Zoom. I didn't hear a lot of, I didn't hear anything from folks when I had asked the question on the preference. So I think we can plan to have it on Zoom. The next milestone for us will be the due date for the report to the board. That is still tentative. I think we want as much time as possible, but it's also a very, very quick turnaround for you to synthesize your report with a lot of, we've provided a lot of information in the budget books. So I'm asking for Friday, May 3rd. I think that provides a very quick turnaround considering the meeting where you're finalizing the report is the 2nd. So that's just 2 meetings to do that. We could plan to hold another working meeting as needed, and maybe we can return to this topic towards the end of this meeting and see how far we get tonight. And then the last milestone I wanted to highlight for tonight was, of course, on Tuesday, May 7th. We'll have CBRC presenting your report to the board. That will be in person at the PEC. You could join on Zoom as needed. And this is a component of their regular board meeting. So the presentation would be at the dais. I know in some prior years, it's been at the dais in the boardroom, and other times it's been in a different location in the PEC, but this year it's going to be in the boardroom. So any questions on that housekeeping? I can follow up with those dates again, so you'll have them in email after this meet. And then otherwise, I wanted to pass it along to Mariah. If you want to kick us off with discussion. I know you had prepared your discussion outline, and just let me know how I can help with that. If you need a visual aid, I can project it, but go ahead and kick us off.
Yeah, so we are on a short timeline here. I'll be honest, I haven't thumbed through the whole 200 pages yet. But I think what we wanted to do tonight, Alexander, if you want to show my outline here, is yeah, Roger, do you want to jump in right now?
I just wanted to ask Alexander, could you, it's SEI, CBO, or and are we proposed cutting their funding, cutting to the chase, or are they wanting to restore what was cut, or what's being asked of us?
Thank you, Roger. So SEI Self-Enhancement Inc. Is a contractor. They contract with PPS. They contract with other organizations as well. I don't have a lot of detail beyond that right now. I don't know, Juno or Young, if you have any information on that, on SEI.
My understanding is that there is a RFP process that's taking place now for all of our partners that provide services through the RESJ process, and so that process is not concluded, and funding for individual partners hasn't been determined yet. So that's going to take place over the next couple of months, is my understanding.
Did we see an additional hand from Javon? Do you mind zooming in on that? I can on mine, but
Sure, I was going to ask if that was legible. We can't see all of it like that. Does that look a little bit better?
Yeah. So I think there's kind of two things that we want to evaluate the proposed budget against. One is going to be the stated budget goals. And we can talk about whether we think those are the right goals they should have. And then what we're really held to are the board goals: 3rd grade reading level, 5th grade mathematics, 8th grade readiness, and high school graduation are the 3 points, or the 4 points, excuse me, that we look at, and we see if the changes and proposed funding is aligned with accomplishing those goals. I wanted to, before we kind of dove into that, just open the room back up for everyone who was on the board meeting last night or able to watch it since then, just kind of for some feedback. If we wanted to maybe have about 5-10 minutes here, any points that really jumped out at you that we may want to include in this before I kind of get deeper into an outline. See, I can't see all the
See, Stefan has his hand
yeah.
up.
Yeah,
Thank you, if you can,
just general remarks. So thank you for doing my outline. I think there's two things. I think one thing that we could put up front, may or may not, just want to throw it out there is a short discussion of a timeline here for us to review. And another thing, what I have an interest, what I would like to include is some point about the central office cuts. And how that affects. So I think that might be course cutting with some of these, but just on my mind.
Central cost cuts, you mean if it?
Central office. So we've seen we had a couple of presentations showing these cuts in the tens of millions. I did a quick look for. I actually have some follow-up questions about where this is reflected in the budget because I didn't fully see that. So my sense is like it's maybe not as visible in the budget because of the way the budget needs to present, its items by the different functions or by the different items. So I think it might be nice to align those two a little bit or to provide a little bit of a connection here.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you. I see Roger. I can't see everybody, so you may just need to jump in. Roger, I see your hand.
Yeah, Roger does.
Okay.
Have.
My only comment was that I was at the board meeting. I thought the questions that the individual directors asked were cogent and helpful. I noted that at the end, the vice chair requested that the questions be answered as promptly as possible, and of course, if they're answered quickly, the CBRC benefits as well, and so I encourage that to happen if at all possible. So thank you.
Okay, anyone else with kind of comments or initial thoughts from the board meeting, the presentation of budget last night? Well, there was a lot there, I'll just say, and we're getting to tough choices. That's a reality for a lot of public budgets right now. All right. If there's no one else, I see Roger still has his hand up. If you still have your hand up, you can jump in.
Oh.
Okay. Moving on. So how we've structured this in the past, and thanks Alexandra for getting and sharing that draft of our past letter, is we've looked at kind of climate and trends. I think some of the things that we've highlighted in the past are still true. In fact, the enrollment decline is likely becoming a bit more severe as we kind of get into that curve. So declining enrollment. Roger, I know that you always want to touch on facility costs. That's definitely an important piece as well. I think it's worth noting in there the piece from the contract, I'm not going to remember the dollar amount on it, from the PAT contract that had some kind of short-term facility fixes in there, but really we still have that looming kind of longer-term facilities cost and deferred maintenance. Any positive trends we'd like to highlight? Graduation comes to mind. And then if Grace is on, we can talk about, we can dive into perhaps third grade reading and what we're seeing there.
Yes, I'm here. I don't have feedback to share tonight about in terms of growth for third grade reading. But I think something to notice in the budget is that, there are specific funds available for early literacy through the early literacy grant. And to pay close attention to how those are being allocated to support the board goals would be a recommendation.
Great. Yeah, sorry to put you on the spot there. I know
That's okay.
you'd indicated your interest in that. I didn't expect that you'd dove into the our 200-page document to a great degree yet. Patty, let me see.
Yes.
Sorry, Board Member Sullivan.
Yeah,
Dr. Sullivan.
Patty is fine. Yes, I have been visiting some primary schools, and I've always been asking, how are you feeling about the new reading adoption? And almost everybody has been positive about it and been positive about the coaches, which, I wasn't sure how they feel, because a coach kind of takes, isn't always in the classroom all the time. And I know a fourth grade teacher at Whitman was having, a really hard time because her fourth graders did not have a lot at first and second grade. And she's just so hopeful that things seem to be going better now in the lower grades. So I hope that's what everybody's seeing. Of course, that's a limited number of schools I've seen, but it's felt good when I've talked to the teachers.
That's great news. Yeah.
Yeah.
Roger, I'm not sure if you want us to call on you or if you just have your hand up. Please jump in.
Are you muted, Roger?
There it comes. I'm sorry, the thing wasn't on the screen. I was wondering if Grace feels that third grade reading is affected by the proposed library cuts. And the other area that concerned me that seemed to be not answered in last night's presentation was what the impact is on the cuts that are proposed in the campus security and custodial areas. Both areas of which have been brought to my attention. So.
Roger, to answer your question about the libraries, I think it's definitely going to impact third grade. I mean, all of the board goals, I think, will be impacted if libraries are closed for some portion of the week. I think they need to be open all the time. And the best practice is to have a teacher librarian full-time in every library. So that's what I can say about that.
Yeah, just want to say it's an important, I think, connection there. Thanks for bringing that up.
Yeah, I see Luke.
Yeah, I kind of wanted to harp on that discussion about like library cuts. Do we know, I haven't had a chance to look over the entire 200-page budget, but are we 100% like certain that that's going to be in every single school, and how big a part of the cuts is that?
Well, let's see if we can find that, or maybe some of our staff experts can help answer.
Stefan,
Yeah.
I do know at Franklin, the high school library there is being cut by a third.
Yeah, just if you go to volume 2, you can look at the library stuff where it's in each line, and you can look at the changes for schools. And if you want to do this by hand, you could tally it up there. So that would be one option to go about that if you want to be systematic.
Yeah, I guess that's very important. Something that I definitely want to focus on in our report is definitely trying to stray away from those cuts, because I think a lot of times for students, like a lot of these numbers in the budget don't really mean much to us, like physically. Like we don't necessarily see the tangible impacts of, like, you know, an extra $1 million here, an extra $1 million there. But I can speak as, like, especially for Franklin, and I'm sure this is the case for plenty of other schools as well. Not only is it going to impact things like third grade reading, but it's going to impact the overall, like, general, like, community of the school. At Franklin, the library is one of the only kind of community centers that we have, and I think the school was designed for it to be that way. So it's not just, I think, like, you know, cutting library part time, but it's like fully, you know, cutting a huge part of the community part time.
Yeah, can I just offer a couple of points about this specific issue? So my understanding is that this is a shift that's concentrated at the K-5 level, and that there aren't changes to the staffing model for libraries and high schools. And in general, I mean, just to comment a little bit, I mean, there are tough choices laced throughout the budget for sure, given the need to reduce our expenditures. So we're trying to make reductions in a way that preserves access to library services and also meets the contractual requirements for planning time for K-5. All students at all grade levels will continue to have access to the library and literary services through school teacher librarians. But that's the gist of the shifts. So, and one of the board members did ask for some more information last night, as folks might have heard. So when we provide more information about the detailed impacts at the school level, we'll share that with CBRC. But I just wanted to provide those general comments for tonight.
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify, because at Franklin we are losing a library assistant. So I don't know if the changes are just impacting K-5 schools. So I do know that that is something that is definitely present in Franklin. I'm not sure about the other high schools as well. But yeah, even if it's, you know, just at the K-5 level, that definitely is, you know, a harder cut to kind of stomach than anything else I can imagine.
Okay, thanks, Luke. We'll look into that.
Yeah,
Sure.
Leon, you'll find that the assistant librarian at Franklin falls into that category of classified personnel that are being cut, and might not show up as a librarian, or what, I don't know. Anyway, that's where I would look anyway.
Okay, thanks, Roger.
Yeah, and I was just going to say, it's pretty much just what Roger said, but if you do look in that volume 2, it tells you, you know, what's being cut from the licensed staff and the certified staff. So when you hear there's no librarians, you can look and say, well, yes, there are. There's not as many, but it can be a little more accurate about what's happening.
I think it might be really nice if we have someone able to do the analysis to just see, like, what are we talking about in terms of FTE cuts with library support services? I'll just, you know, kind of broad umbrella there for assistants or librarians. Do we have that broken out? Is that in volume 2?
Yes, it is. Like if you can just look under there's like for each school, this is Glencoe. And it's got licensed library. Last year they had 0.5. Actually, this year they have 0.6. Huh, they went up. And then but then last year for classified, they had 0.5 and now they don't have any. So actually they did lose 0.4 FTE.
Is there a way to look at that comprehensively across the district, perhaps by K through 5 and so forth?
I'm not sure. The book is alphabetical.
Can I,
Yeah, so I'm trying to look in the volume 1 to see if we have that there.
Oh, I don't know if it's in one.
I don't think it's in one. What you can do is, I think you can, if you can extract the numbers by school, classify schools, get the FTE last year and this year, and then you can make a comparison. If that's something interesting, look, I'd be interesting. If you're interested in this, I'd be happy to work with you on this. I guess my question is there an Excel sheet or so we could use for that? Or would we need to extract that from a PDF?
Yeah, would there be any staff support around that?
Myung, you have your hand up. Did you want to respond to the
Sorry,
staff support for the library?
That was up from before.
Mhm.
Sorry about that. I'll lower it.
I was just scanning through the document to see where there might be a helpful report. I think our general fund FTE by function report may be helpful in this case, and that is something that we could provide.
Pages, what
in
page
an
are we referencing there? Sorry.
Yeah, I'm just trying to find which page it's on this year. And then Juno, if you want to let me know if you think that would be helpful. But I was thinking about the budgeted positions by minor function on page 96, and I'm just seeing if the minor function included
Or
library.
libraries.
Yeah.
That's what I was looking at too.
Mhm. I'll screen share what I'm looking at. You're kind of problem solving together.
Yeah, because I'll say like the budget books works well for if you want to look up your own school and kind of get that granular detail, but it's a little harder to make the broad analysis and see what the trend is.
Yeah, I don't, but do you know which function it's within, do you know?
I think it's 2220.
Mhm.
I'm pretty sure it's 2220, but let me look in the PBAM real quick just to
Mm-hmm.
verify.
That just looks like a small,
222.
for Gen
Yeah.
Fund, that only would have been 5.8. Oh, that was within non-rep. So this table is set up with licensed classified administrators, non-rep, and it's only for one budget year, so it doesn't show a trend. So yeah, that does look like that could be it, because that is quite a large amount of FTE.
Yep.
Right. So this is something I believe we could provide this in Excel. Do you agree, Juno? Like
Yeah.
just this table could be provided so that you all can manipulate the data more easily.
Yeah.
Could you just say which page? No.
Was it 96?
Yeah, this was page 96 in the printed document and 103 in the electronic version. And Luke, I see you have your hand up.
Yeah, I guess I'm just a little confused because, like, it is correct that we are going to be seeing like cuts at most schools, even if, I guess the idea that I kind of heard from Patty or Director Sullivan is that, like, there still will be librarians, but there's just going to be less. But from the general like sentiment that I've heard is that even if there's one full-time equivalent like librarian at each school, that doesn't necessarily mean that the library is going to be able to be open most of the time, because those librarians are also doing things like processing textbooks and like their own prep time. So one FTE librarian is not enough to cover an entire library, I guess is what I've heard. So like that's just my main concern. So that would be great to like have more insight into like what the actual like hour reductions are going to look like in libraries. Like, what are the actual hours that we're going to see, and how is that like related to, I guess, like each grade level?
Yeah, what it really means, right? Yeah.
So I'd like to pause here. I think this is a point where we have something that many of us are interested in drilling down on and providing some analysis and a recommendation for the board around. I don't know what that'll be until we kind of look at the data, but is there anyone who'd kind of like to lead point on this? Because I will work on the overall draft, but if we have some things that people want to parse out, want to, you know, kind of dive down on, I think that would be helpful in terms of the overall work product.
Luke, do you have your hand up?
No, sorry.
Well, we can table that and move on. Again, we'll go through 5th grade mathematics, 8th grade readiness, and high school graduation. Let's see. I don't know if there's anything we want to highlight at this point until all of us have kind of dug in and read through this. I will do some work around graduation rates, certainly. And maybe we want to just look at climate and trends. So as we're looking at each of these goals, what are the climate and trends that we want to pull out here?
I think something that has been raised by the board that we should look at carefully is the discrepancy in scores between our Black, Brown, and Native students and our white students in math. And specifically, I mean, that's the board goal, is to close those gaps, but it's been pretty intense to see how few of our Black, Brown, and Native students are meeting benchmarks at those different grades. So I think just looking at, knowing that we've been in a new math adoption for K-5 now for, I think, 3, maybe 4 years, looking at those trends to see, is it, you know, is that working? To give some feedback on that investment would be helpful. I'm not sure how long we've been in with the middle school or the high school adoptions, but I think it's been 3 or 4 years since we got the iReady program for elementary. The other thing too is they did eliminate quite a few teacher on special assignment positions and replaced those with the site-based coaches.
Mhm.
And so I'd just be curious to see, you know, if there's a change in the testing results, since not having, you know, teachers don't have a math person to go to per se, they have a overall coach to go to. So just to the way, whether it's which one is more effective in terms of impacting those test scores for specifically our Black, Brown, and Native students.
And Grace, on middle school math, I think we're in year 2 of that adoption, if I'm not mistaken. I think one of the things to look at there too is going to be around the changes with compacted math. Or I should say at this point, proposed changes, I think.
Yeah, are they planning to not offer it anymore, or what's the plan?
I'm going to be honest, I missed a curriculum meeting on this, and I'm not sure where it stands right now, but that had been the proposal, was to eliminate compacted math as a, I didn't quite follow the logic on it, an equity measure to improve outcomes for Black and Brown students.
I think it's still on for next year, is my understanding.
Oh, sorry, mine just cut out.
Sorry, I think it might, a compacted math program.
Yeah, it's on it.
All right, never mind.
It's still on for next year.
That's my understanding, but I think it's probably best to just look up what the actual policies are.
I know they've certainly, the discussion has certainly been around piloting, removing that. So this might be a good point to look at where things are headed.
One thing I know with being a classroom teacher for math, we don't have an adopted tier 3. So like for our highest needs students math curriculum right now, we do have it for literacy, but we don't have something for math. So that could be a noticing for students with, that need some foundational skills in math. There isn't a tool for that right now.
Roger, did you have your hand up, or are you off mute?
I did have it up. I have 2 comments. This is an area where I have no expertise, and I applaud any teacher or accountant or anybody on our team that can do so. My observation is this: for over 50 years, Portland Public Schools has devoted additional resources to Title I CSI, TSI schools. And yet, based on the testing results that Dr. Adams has presented in recent times, we've moved the needle very, very, very little. And it's disappointing. And I really wonder whether the district really is fully evaluating what they're doing. In this very last year, I noticed there was a report. There's only one school system in the whole country that has no gaps, all success in graduation, and that are the schools operated by the military and the foreign service. And I thought, well, isn't that remarkable? And we do have one director, Michelle DePass, who is a product of a military background, I believe. At least she's moved around in multiple schools in her upbringing. But it seems to me, after 50 years, Portland Public is definitely doing something wrong. I could be wrong.
Well, let's dig into the discussion of that in the budget book as well. Patty.
I just want to say, I read that article that you probably read, Roger, about the military at the defense schools. And it did say that something they all have in common, they all have at least one person's working, they have housing. It does have the most diverse group too. I mean, you're looking at a diverse population in the military, probably more than we have in Portland Public Schools. But one of the main things seems to be stability of all the families. So, we can't do magic. We just can do our best. And I guess, like you say, Roger, what is our best? We have to keep looking at that. And there's a lot of teachers here, and I taught for many years, and every year you're trying something new to make it work. So maybe we have to stay with something for a while, but yeah, it's hard and it's frustrating.
Okay.
Right, you had asked about assigning the library reduction impacts, and we didn't hear anyone, jump into that, but I think fifth grade math. Did we already discuss that being assigned to someone, or? Stefan, you had your hand up a moment ago. I think it wasn't to volunteer for fifth grade math, though.
No, that's not mine. I might do the library. I would like to know where I could get those data in a format that allows to actually look at them, not through PDF. I guess that's part of my consideration. Sorry.
Well, I will say the ask is going to be for all of us to jump in. I'm going to work on drafting this document tomorrow and Saturday to give kind of a framework. And then we'll open this up to your input if you would give me at least a day on that to get something together. We will utilize the track changes in Google Documents to suggest changes and then to adopt those. And given our timeline, let's see. We need to have this in. We need this in on Friday, the 3rd.
I didn't get a response on Friday the 3rd. The meeting is
that if we're going to meet on the 7th, right?
Right. Yeah, I think probably the latest it could theoretically be is Monday, the day before, but that I don't know that would be a good benefit for CBRC because the board will have a very limited time to review it. So I think a reasonable, it's probably not reasonable, but a target could be that Friday. And then that will give the board the weekend and 2 days during the week to review it.
Alexandra, sorry, I don't mean to cut anybody off, but just on that point, I'm seeing an email from Roseanne saying that the 3rd works as the target date, and she's conveying that to the board.
Okay, well, in light of our foreshortened timeline here, I will invite everyone to jump in afternoon on 12 o'clock on Saturday to begin adding and reviewing. Let's do that through Tuesday. If we could, Tuesday the 30th, and then I will try to tighten it up and incorporate changes and ask my co-chair and Roger if he was willing to also review that with me so that we get something that's pretty well together by the 2nd. And so that if we have changes or adjustments, we can do that. Also, given this timeline, which is shorter than we have had in the past, I think I want to be pretty brief. To the point. I want to use that section if we can, if you want to scroll down a little bit on climate and trends to really bring that to the top and thinking about this as a public document. That could be the section that may be the only section that many people read if they open our letter at all beyond the board. And so in that piece, I want to kind of bring that to maybe 3 to 4 paragraphs. That is really the bulk of our recommendations there at the end. So 2 to 3 paragraphs of kind of climate, the things that we feel are most critical. And then, let's say a half dozen or so bullet points of where we think the board goals are being met or not being met in this particular budget. That would be my thoughts. And then we can expand upon that below. Because I'm just looking back at our last year's report and there's a lot of good meat in here. Some of the things like deferred maintenance, Roger, again, if you want to take that on, I'm happy to weigh in as well. I think we can move lower. Not because it's lower in importance, but simply, I think the board is familiar with our recommendation. Please jump in. Just jump off mute. It's fine.
My hand is raised only to ask Alexandra, make sure we know how to, being the nerd or non-nerd, I need help getting to the document that we're all fashioning together. So thank you.
I can pause and do that and just quickly before Director Sullivan comments. So you all already have the link to this. It was linked in our last slideshow from our last meeting, and then I also sent it in this most recent email. So there could be access issues if you use a different email or something like that. So let me know if you have access issues, but you should all already have it. And this is set to, like Mariah described, track changes. I think Mariah, I think it would make sense for you to be the editor on this and accept changes. So I'm going to change your access so that you can do that work. And then I can also, with maybe your co-chairs or vice chairs, if we want other people to be able to do that, but it kind of makes sense for one person to be the lead, I think. But let me know if we should add more people. And then for people who are suggesting changes, this is the function in Google Docs. I'll make it a little bigger.
Is Taz our co-chair on as well? I mean,
Taz
this is kind of our shared duty.
Yes, Taz. Oh, Taz was on.
Okay.
I think some folks have messaged me during this, and she might have been one who had to hop off. I don't see her right now.
Okay.
For other folks around how to suggest, so I just highlighted this, and then if I wanted to make a suggestion, I'm going to highlight it like that, and then let's see. So when I pushed that button that said suggest, and now I'm typing into the document, and you can tell it's a suggestion because it's in this comment field off to the right, and I typed in 4 M's. So I can go like that. And then it's kind of like I accepted it by pushing that little check mark. So it is kind of tricky. Another thing that you could do is comment. So now I've deleted that suggestion. And then anytime you push a check, it's going to accept the suggestion. So that would be Mariah's role, is accepting it. Another way to have dialogue in here is to comment on it like this. And that could be a way to have dialogue with each other as you're fleshing out the report. Okay, Director Sullivan.
That's pretty much what I was going to ask you, except so our role is to look through the old one and make any changes we think, or many suggestions, right? And then what was happening on the 3rd? On May 3rd.
We will submit our final draft or our final version to the board.
Okay, but we won't be meeting.
But we're meeting on the
2nd, right?
Yes.
Well, we have our meeting on the 2nd. Okay, great. Thank you.
Mariah, did you've laid out a timeline, and I don't know if I captured all of it, but you asked people to contribute their content by Saturday. So using the track changes. And then, but were you going to take a first pass at it before Saturday?
So I was asking if I could have, until Saturday at noon to take a first pass on things and then let everybody jump in, say Saturday through Tuesday night. I'll take a look at it Wednesday morning and get a final version.
Great. Okay. So Mariah is working through noon on Saturday. Everyone else can contribute afternoon, and then you'll prepare the draft for us to look at on Thursday.
And I will send out an email if I can get this done sooner.
Okay.
To give you all as much time as possible. I will say the other thing that I really want to call out here, I've heard librarians, but I think the increase in class sizes, while it's portrayed as minimal, here in the budget. I know I have a first grader in a class with 31 students. I have a 7th grader in a math class with 39 students and 35 chairs. And I can't imagine adding more kids to that. So I do wonder how increased class sizes are in alignment with any of these board goals. I understand our financial reality as well. I see Grace has her hand up.
Yeah, thanks. I have another trend, and that is the changes to special education.
Yeah.
That we're hearing a lot about. I'm not anywhere near as versed as I need to be on what that actually will look like for, student services. I think that was the question that was asked last night at the board meeting was, what will it look like for a student to have, these certain cuts happening, and how does that change the student experience versus how does it change the adult experience, in like what the job of the educators or administrators will entail. But I think it's important to look closely at that because there are some pretty sweeping, it sounds to me like there's some pretty sweeping programmatic changes that are not real clear yet in the budget. So
Grace, if I can't get the darn thing to raise my hand. But I was noting in the volume 2, or no, it's in the first volume, under the information section tab on page 221, there's a discussion about the staffing of special education. My understanding is that the district is in the midst of trying to go back to where special education services are provided by the individual neighborhood schools, whereas previously they were aggregated in areas where they could provide the wraparound services that might be needed for that area, and then it involved some travel and so on. And in the years that I've been on this committee, it seems like there isn't unanimity among special ed parents as to what's the most beneficial way to provide these services. And I do know that where I have volunteered at Franklin, we have students there that many of whom could be mainlined in a normal class and maybe only spend one period in a special ed type of thing. And then we've had other students that have required 3 adults. So there's a wide range of need and amongst students of special needs. And bear in mind, since the Individual Disability Education Act was enacted in the early 70s by the federal government provided promised to provide 40% funding, and they have yet to exceed 10%. So, and that's the history. And then at the state level, districts like Beaverton and Portland get hammered particularly because the refunding our funding of special ed is capped at 11%, and the Portland district and Beaverton are more like 16% or something like that. And so I do know the first year I was on the CBRC, PPS taxpayers were providing about 75 million at that time, now we're in excess of 100 million. I think it's more like 125, 135 million now. And the legislature and the federal government are always enacting unfunded mandates, and special ed has been one of those areas where there's a certain cap of funding that you can't go back, and so I don't know how we're affected by that, but anyway, that's my 2 cents.
Thanks for that history, Roger. Yeah, I know that the amount that we get reimbursed by the federal government that mandates we provide these services is nowhere near the amount that is actually spent. I guess my question is more about, with moving to the neighborhood model, how are those services going to be provided? Because from a classroom teacher's perspective, there's a very big difference between doing inclusion that supports the students' needs and inclusion that really doesn't, because when you include students in the general ed classroom without support, that's not inclusion, that's dumping, because they aren't able to get their needs met. And it's hard to, if that's the model that they're going for without support, we're not going to get the results that the board wants.
Well, I'm not arguing with that. That question was asked at the board meeting last night, and the answer that was given, as I understood it, was that is forthcoming, and parents are being involved in those discussions. So I don't know where we stand right now.
Yep.
Can I just chime in? I'm sorry, Director Sullivan, please go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say that the special ed situation seems to be one of the most problematic things for the district. It seems to be what we get most of the emails about. And it's, in my opinion, it's, like was just mentioned, inclusion without enough support. So, but when I talked to Jay Buno, who's, head of special ed, he's confident that it's going to be working. So we'll give it another chance and see what happens. Hopefully it'll work.
Thank you, Director Sullivan. I was just going to comment as well, and mention our colleague Jay Buno as well, who has obviously a lot more expertise than I do, or Alexandra Juno on the question, but there is a lot of thoughtful intention that I know he and his team are bringing to bear around this deepening of our approach to inclusive services. And just so everybody's aware, it's not it's sort of expanding the practices that are currently, my understanding is just in one particular school to about half a dozen. So it's quite gradual and not going to scale all at once. The expansion of inclusive services. And Grace, I know you know a ton about this, but so I don't mean to make it overly simplified, but for the good of the conversation, just to share that the intention, as I understand it, is to try to serve as many students over time in the least restrictive setting with supports according to their IEPs. And I know the devil is in the details in terms of what do supports look like, and how effectively does it work, and training and case management and everything else that's complicated and important to tend to the details. But I know the intention is to provide as many of the services as possible in the least restrictive environment, according to what IDEA spells out. So, and I know there's been interest in the CBRC, among CBRC members, in hearing more about this from our expert colleagues, and I know Jay is willing and interested in coming to the CBRC. It's just been a little bit of a challenge lining up his schedule with CBRC dates, but I know he's looking forward to coming at some point when we can arrange it.
Yeah, I'm actually going out, have been invited to go to beach school on Monday, where the teacher there said she invited the board to, I think she's got, you know, the special ed program running that Jay wants and wanted us to see it. So maybe the next time we meet, I'll tell you what I see. Maybe I'll feel more confident.
Let's see, I think that covers a lot of our sections here. We'll get into the meat of 8th grade readiness and high school graduation. I'm gonna page down a little bit. And then I just pulled these as key issues right from the budget book. These are, I just wanted to offer those as like kind of a things that we want to look at as we evaluate these. So, you know, really just as we're considering this and going through asking the question, you know, is the budget a seeking to spare students as much as possible? Yep, there we go. So spread the cuts across the district. And I think that's a question that I want to ask this group. Like, do we feel that that's the appropriate approach? Kind of just stepping back from this and looking at a little bit higher level. Because it is the focus on maintaining programs in schools. I mean, I understand cutting schools is disruptive to families and communities, but that is, you know, there are multiple ways to approach this. So I wanted to open that for feedback as well. And then really we're going to evaluate against, you know, does the proposed budget meet the stated goals? And kind of a last thought on that, let's see how this kind of forms up together. But in that, you know, kind of trends and sections report, would we want to consider giving some sort of evaluation? We're giving recommendations, right? And in that, our analysis, but do we want to give some kind of evaluation about how well this budget meets those goals, those 4 goals? I mean, as a shorthand, we could give a grade or a number to things in terms of how well we think it fits. We haven't done that in the past, but I want to think about this as being a really readable document. I mean, A, our board members aren't going to have a lot of time, and B, if anybody from the public reads it, it's nice to have some shorthand as well. So I offer that as one suggestion.
My take is that the connection between the budget and those goals is something that we can't make. I think we can speak to whether and how it affects it, but I would be hesitant to be more specific because it's hard to say how that translates into these in a more granular way. I think making a connection, I think, is an important step for us to do. And I think that's a value that we do here. I think like the goals are there, the budget is there, but the connection is there. So I think that connection, I think, is very valuable.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'm intrigued by the idea of putting a grade or a number on it, but as someone who does a lot of grading and numbering, it takes a lot of time then to go back and make sure you've got a really solid rubric that, you know, where'd you get that grade from? And I just don't know that we have at this point a lot of time to do that, but that might be something we could build towards with the committee for future budgets. I do
What-
think it's really good to say, I wonder, or, you know, the observations and then the recommendations that we did last year seemed, we noticed this, we wonder this, and we recommend that the board think about X, Y, and Z. I would be comfortable with that level of
Evaluation.
feedback, but I'm not sure if like a grade or a number right now we're I think it's an intriguing idea, Mariah, and especially because of the limited time that people have to review our reports. That could be really handy, but it would just take some time to make that happen.
I think it would be great to find somewhere in between those two, because definitely we want it to be as digestible as possible. And like, I think, you know, the issue with making kind of written long recommendations, or, you know, even if they're kind of shorter, is that it'll kind of get lost in with everything else. So definitely like something like a grade would potentially have a bigger impact, but also like we'd want it to be something that's definitely representative. So that's not going to be possible. Maybe finding some middle ground.
I had a comment on that, but Stefan, do you have your hand up? Or maybe you're frozen actually. I know that in prior years, the reports format I think has typically been a written memo. And one suggestion I had was that we could provide a written memo as well as a slideshow that summarizes those key points. I think that might be helpful for staff after the fact, as well as the CBRC report from prior years has really had legs. A lot of people have looked at that, as you saw in our learning acceleration presentation. The team considered that as they were making programmatic choices and decisions. So if we, it may be beneficial as the board is digesting it as well, and as an anchor for your presentation, to provide a presentation with those highlights.
I'm not sure if I'm going to have the capacity to do that, but that's a great thought. And I will think about it as I am drafting and incorporating everyone's recommendations.
I think if the if the content is there, I did create kind of a shell for you, and I would be happy to support. So if you wanted to maybe just highlight or let me know what should be included there, I would be happy to do the formatting and just inputting of content into slideshow.
Let's see if we could do that at our next meeting as a CBRC. That might be a good use of our time to spend 15 minutes and pull out those points and kind of put that together. All right, anything else for tonight?
Mariah, just to clarify, you're asking folks to jump in on things. So are you wanting people to focus on specific sections?
Yeah, certainly. If you have an area of expertise or interest, I welcome you to dive in, because there's a lot to go through here.
Yeah.
And I think that would be the best use of kind of our expertise as a committee, is if we can have people, you know, pick an area to jump in on.
So I'm happy to look at how the budget addresses the goals for third grade reading. And then was there something else in the trends that still you were looking for someone to?
I think one of them was around library support, and it sounds like staff is going to give us some help on that.
Okay.
We can provide the data on it, but would someone like to receive the data and look at those trends? I think that the ask was around the FTE levels. So I think we know the report that we can provide, and we could provide it for prior years as well, so you can see the trend.
Great.
But does someone want to review it and
I can do this.
You can send it to me as well, since I'm going to be doing some focus on the third grade reading, and it seems to be falling under that.
I think it's probably broader than third grade reading. I think
Yeah.
it relates
True.
to it, but I think my sense is that this is affecting our school levels as well. So it might be a separate thing, but then feeds into that third grading as well. So
Yeah, it's
library
not
stuff
exclusively to that one. Yeah.
So I think we want to have that broader.
Okay.
And then
I can also get in on some of that if I would like to see the reports as well.
Yeah, I
Sounds
think Luke, I think what you shared today was really valuable, and I think it's a different perspective that I think a lot of parents also don't have, right? What it means to have a library there in the school. So I think like one thing is to look at those numbers and FTEs, but I think another thing is to have some language there around what it means for a library to be there. So I think that would be really great if you could think about that.
Director Sullivan.
Yeah, I'm looking at the document, and number 7 says lack of focus on early literacy. But I think this year we really did put a heavy focus on early literacy. So if you see a place that seems like it's totally different now, I don't know, just make a comment about maybe writing. Mariah, you probably, you teach, right? Or is it Grace that does the early literacy? But seems like that whole thing needs to change.
I also wanted to, I see another couple hands here, but I wanted to ask the CBRC, in the past, we have maintained a recommendation of a 10% reserve. And the district has made a decision to draw that down to essentially deal with some of the budget cuts both this year and next year. Do we want to change that recommendation given the other priorities that we have here?
I noted last night at the board meeting that I believe it's by the end of the budget year the next budget year that you'll get to deal with. Reserves are drawn down all the way down to 1%, I really hate to see that happen, and I'm hopeful that it appears that we're betting on the come that the legislature will indeed increase its funding and maybe near the quality education model funding level, but I'm not sure because every area of budgets at federal and local and state levels are demanding services of every kind, increases, and so whether that's possible or not, I don't know, but I do know that in my 15 years on this committee, one of the metropolitan area school districts, major school district in Portland, in Oregon, drew down its reserves to zero, and then lo and behold, the legislature did not appropriate additional funding the next go around, and that district then had to lay off 350 teaching positions. Portland can't afford to do that.
Okay, I see a couple of hands.
I think Stefan was before me, but when it's timely, I just wanted to clarify. an aspect of the reserve, the assumptions or the intentions around the reserve in the following year that Roger commented on.
And I think Mo, you let me know you had internet issues, but I saw you had your hand up for quite a while. So if I would suggest that Mo, if you have your comment or question now, while your internet might be working.
Oh yeah, can you come back to me in like a few minutes? Sorry.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
Okay, Stefan, sorry, go ahead.
I think Myung, if you can talk about the reserve, because my points are about other topics.
Okay, thank you, Stefan. So yeah, I just wanted to clarify that the intention, and sorry if this didn't come through clearly in the presentation last night, is that there would be one way or another steps taken in each year, including the year after next, to maintain 5% reserve, which is the minimum that's called for in the pertinent board policy. The board policy calls for the reserves to be, I can't remember if the language is at least, or it says between 5 and 10%, and so we're all organizing around that. So not the 10% necessarily in the short term, but at least maintaining the 5%. So whether that's through a combination of additional revenues that come in higher than what we're forecasting, or additional expenditure reductions, but that in any case that the steps would be taken to not go below that 5% reserve that's outlined in the board policy.
But didn't your slide show last night that if the next year, if nothing happens, it's gone, that the
Right.
yeah.
So it's the if nothing happens part. So that there's the distinction of if nothing happens, then we're facing a natural trend that would basically come close to depleting the reserves. But in order to prevent that, steps would be taken to prevent the reserves from being depleted, and to keep them at least propped up to that 5% level. So the proposed budget does include about $30 million of reductions for 24-25, and that and those would carry through to the following year, to 25-26. And if necessary, that additional reductions would be identified for that following year, for 25-26, in the absence of additional revenue improvements, in order to keep that 5% reserve. Sorry, Director Sullivan. I know that chart is a little confusing.
Yeah, it was scary. Yeah.
Yeah, sorry.
Could I get some
Sorry.
clarification? That
Go ahead.
Okay, so on the timeline for that trend, you say we'll see it completely being depleted, but is that that's not a next year thing? What is the actual timeline for that?
It's the year after next, the 25-26.
So we'd be out of all of the reserves by 25-26 if we didn't put into the reserves this year. Is that what I'm hearing correctly, or am I?
So right now we're projecting beginning next year, beginning 24-25. So July 1st of 24, beginning this coming year with a reserve balance of about 84 million, and spending roughly half of that down in 24-25. because we're projecting expending about $41 million or something like that, more than we're projecting to take in. And so that 84 would go down to about 42 by the end of next year, which becomes the beginning balance for the following year, 25-26. And if that trend occurs, if that same trend occurs in 25-26, then the amount that we begin with in that third year, say $42 million, would go down to, you know, just over zero. So and that's not good. That's you know, very risky. So in order to prevent draining those reserves down to, you know, $1 million or so, there would need to be actions would need to be taken to, you know, reduce expenditures, or if there was improvements in the revenues, let's say, and I always try to keep hopeful but still action oriented, you know, if there's more money that comes from the state because education funding is prioritized more highly, and if there's, you know, more revenues that come through than we're projecting, then that would help a lot. And maybe it might be a combination. You know, this is all speculative, but maybe it's a combination of revenue improvements and some additional expenditure reductions. But yes, sorry, Luke, that's a long-winded answer, but that's the general time frame.
You.
Can I just ask, does our reserve fund balance affect our ability to bond or to get good interest rates on bonds?
It does have an effect. So one of the credit rating factors that the rating agencies and people, institutions that would buy the bonds or invest in the bonds looks at, there are lots of different factors they look at, but one of the factors is the general fiscal stability of the district. And one of the markers of fiscal stability is adequate reserve levels. So it's not there's no single factor that says yes or no, you can or can't issue bonds, but that is, you know, a pretty important one. And credit rating agencies and investors, they like to see districts or, you know, whoever's issuing bonds have policies like PPS does, like similar to the board policy that exists that calls for at least a 5% reserve. That's not the only reason to you know, maintain to maintain those reserves in terms of, you know, ability to issue bonds, but it is a good thing. That is one of the good things for one of the good reasons to keep adequate reserves. First of all, you want to make sure you can meet all your obligations. That's the most important thing. But another benefit is being in good standing from credit rating agencies and investors, so you can get lower interest rates rather than higher interest rates.
And I'd like to remind everybody about the levy coming up on May 21st. We really need to pass that. That supports about 650 teachers, so please talk that up. And I just got an email. It's called Families for Equity in Schools, and it's a launch party. It's time for fully funded schools in Oregon. Join us to launch this parent-led advocacy effort for fully funded Oregon schools. So that's on Tuesday, April 30th. So I think I'm going to go there and see what they're doing. And actually, I can send that email if anybody is going to RSVP email if anybody wants to see it. I'll send it through Alexandra. I think that's what we have to do is really get to Salem, get everybody down there. Because I know the whole state needs it.
We have a couple of hands up, and I didn't want to forget to go back to Mo. But I think Stefan, you had your hand up first.
Yeah, just very quickly. So one thing, I don't know if it's in this outline, but I would like to do one paragraph on the central office budget cuts. Oh, it's there. Okay, good. And then the other thing is like, I think I have some questions about as we dig through a budget. Can we just email? Who should we email those, or how should we go about that?
Yeah, if you have questions over the next few days, email them to me. And this is the work we're prioritizing now is responding to these. So we'll get back to you as soon as we can. I know you need the information ASAP.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Roger, do you have your hand up?
I can't see whether my mic is on or not. Yes, it is, I guess. I wanted to ask Neil if he could give us what the school district's budget rating or bond rating is now. I wanted to comment that I have personal knowledge of a suburb of Portland. That community has a 30% reserve account and has a AAA bond rating.
Thanks, Roger. Yeah, that's a really favorable reserve level. And Director Scott last night, in case folks caught or missed this, he was commenting that, and he has a lot of expertise about this too, that best practice for public entities is I think he said 16%, and so we're well below that. But our rating is I know that Moody's, one of the major rating agencies, rates our debt at AA2, which is a strong credit rating. It's not AAA, but very few districts are AAA. It's a notch below, and that is a good credit rating. And I haven't totally digested all of their analysis, but I believe part of that high credit rating is due to the reserve policy that the board has passed, and maintaining those reserves. To be honest, Roger, I'm not sure if Moody's is the only agency that rates PPS's debt, or if Standard & Poor's or Fitch, those are the other two large rating agencies, also assign credit ratings. But I happened to look this up fairly recently about the Moody's rating. So that's a good indicator, but hopefully they'll see fit to keep that high rating.
When I worked in the state treasurer's office, I know the state of Oregon used all three. So.
Mo, are you ready for your question or comment?
Oh yeah, I do want to also add that I go to Lincoln, so I do know that they're losing a bunch of library assistants, so I just want to add that too. So I was just looking at the document.
Thanks, Mo. I know your internet was cutting out, but we've outlined a process where for contributing to the report, where Mariah is going to work through noon on Saturday, so folks can contribute to the shared doc afternoon on Saturday, and then Mariah will go back and prep a version for us to look at on Thursday when our next meeting is, and then our report is due on Friday. And on the library piece, we had Grace, Stefan, and Luke as interested in that section or in contributing to that section. But Mo, if you'd like, to also share your perspective as a student at Lincoln. I think that would be really valuable here. So can I'm just suggesting that you can also be co-assigned to this with 4 other people or 3 other people.
Oh yeah, sorry to interrupt. I'd love to. Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Okay, great, good. And I was just aware that we hadn't heard from some other folks, like Jen. I don't want to call on you, but and I know you're new in a sense, in that this is your first year on the committee, but just wanted to create the opening for you if there was anything that you were interested in commenting on or contributing towards these reports or and the process we're going through now. Can't hear you, but I see that you're off mute.
Apologies. Are you able to hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thanks so much for the call out. Yes, I've been trying to take a back seat to get a better feel for how these reports get constructed and definitely privilege the discussion from others. But I would be happy, especially for jumping into this document on the 3rd or the 5th grade compacted math section. And I feel that I'll probably be a better contributor to the document rather than giving verbal commentary.
Yeah, perfect. Thanks, Jen. So I noted your name down here. I think we had already kind of asked if there was anyone who wanted to jump in. So you happen to be the only name here now, but I assume other people will also be contributing the document. And then I think otherwise, Mr. Cruz, we hadn't heard from you yet today, Karanja, so just wanted to provide an opening if there was anything this year that you wanted to contribute either in the meeting or in the document later.
Yeah, I would just contribute with the document later.
Okay. Perfect. Mariah, was there anything else you wanted to cover for tonight? I'm just doing a time check and I see we have about 11 minutes left in our scheduled time.
No, actually, I think we can conclude if there's no other business. We have a timeline for how we can act on this. And, frankly, I'll just get to it in the next hour.
Great. Well, thanks so much for doing the heavy lifting and for everyone being patient with us while we, it's been a really challenging budget cycle. So thanks for your patience in this. And Mariah, I can turn it back to you if you want to adjourn the meet.
All right. If there's no other comments, questions, meeting adjourned. Thank you.
Thanks all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You.